All right, welcome back to the AI Code Central podcast. This is episode 17, and we have a special guest, Colin Lawlor. Great dude, great convo, very interesting guy. Started working at Guinness, as he says, way back in the day, in the late 90s, but he is the CEO of Sleep.AI. Connor and myself suffer from, I got like 4 hours of sleep last night. All right.
No, it's all good.
So,
Everybody, you know what? It's a
chill.
common thing. Everybody does Connor and Colin. It's happened my entire life.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
Yeah, dude. Like,
Okay.
listen, with a name like Connor Douglas, also, you know how many times I get Douglas, Connor? I've gotten Douglas O'Connor for some reason. Like, I don't know. It's like Colin
Okay.
Douglas. It's all over the place.
Okay.
So anyway, sorry.
Great dude, great combo, and hopefully we can make it to CES Vegas where he will be. So they just closed a large round of funding, and their API, their tech is pretty badass. So stoked for that. So
yeah, pretty neat. It was cool to actually talk to him too and find out the app that I actually used for I got a sleep apnea test. That the app that they used is the one that I had to download and do all the testing for and everything for sleep apnea. So cool to put 2 and 2 together on that one.
That's dope.
Yeah.
So what's new? How the Mets doing?
Dude, so I was about to say I don't want to make this. Obviously, it's not a Mets podcast, but I went to a game last night. I'm hoping it's not my last one of the season, but if they don't make the playoffs, it'll be the last one of the season. If they do make the playoffs, which they're like right on the cusp, they go out to Los Angeles, they play the Dodgers. They probably won't win, so they won't be back home in New York. So it'll probably be the last game I go to for the season, but they're doing better, thankfully. So I got to go to a game. They hit like 10 home runs yesterday. Maybe not 10, but like 5 or 6 home runs. They crushed the San Diego Padres. So it was a great game. It's been beautiful weather out here. I can't complain. But the Mets are in a good spot. The Cowboys won this past Sunday. Connor's happy when it comes to sports. That's all I need. And I took a trip to West Virginia this weekend. I've been traveling like all over the place this summer. My wife's brother goes to school at Marshall University. Do you remember the movie We Are Marshall by any chance with Matthew McConaughey?
No.
Oh well, it's a I guess relatively
past 10 years or
no, it's older than that. I think like early Matthew McConaughey days. But he's like a football coach for Marshall University, and that's the Marshall University I went to. Saw a football game there. But West Virginia, like that area, like visiting, very cool. Never been down there. Kind of what you would expect, I think. Obviously, very different than for me living in New York City. I think going to West Virginia, very country looking, very rural, but nice trip nonetheless. So it's been a good past couple of days for me. Yeah.
When did you get back?
What's that?
When did you get back?
I got back Sunday. So we left on Friday, came back Sunday. It was just a really quick trip, but we drove the whole way. And that was like a 12-hour trip each way. So lots of driving. I spent more time in the car than I actually spent, I think, in West Virginia.
Oh, yeah. Okay. What did I do? Let's see. I did take a day trip, took a little field trip up to Trestle again. Texted my buddy. He's a lunatic. Buzzing up to Trestle. If you're up there, let's ride. Take a nap. I was like, all right, whatever, dude. I'm going to stomp out this line. He goes, yeah, effing get it. I was like, all right.
Is that the place with like the sheer drop off of just like?
Yeah. So there's one more that I want to. The season ends not this upcoming weekend, but the next weekend. So it ends end of September. There's one more that I want to do. One more gap, and it's a black diamond. So like it's all right. Well, what he didn't tell me is that it's very deceiving. It's like bigger in terms of like the gap length. If you're just listening on the podcast, just pull over and pull up our YouTube channel. It's like this much, well, to scale, it's like way longer than like a double black diamond, which we're on, the trip before. But what makes it challenging is that there's 3 little gaps before this last one. And there's like a hard turn. And I hadn't been on that trail in like a year. Right? Like that was my first time on this trail this season. So I completely forgot. So I was like, all right, well, I'm pulling up here. Like my buddies aren't here, whatever. I'm just gonna do it. I came here like I made that trip like just to do that too, like just knock it off the list kind of thing.
Oh man.
And I went and just effed it up. I didn't crash, thank God. Somehow I didn't crash, but I wasn't going fast enough. So it's a jump where it's a step down. So it's here, but you land down here.
Yep.
Right, and then there's a flat bottom there. Okay, so it's like that. So you get speed from here. like that. But there's a hard turn, and I wasn't going fast enough, which means I screwed up the second little gap. Those little gaps are designed to give you speed. I landed so hard on that flat bottom, like my front wheel was on the landing, but my back wheel was like on the flat bottom. So my pedals, I basically just went straight up, bam, and I hit so freaking hard. If you have a dual suspension bike, like a downhill bike, a burly bike, there are these red rings that act as like indicators on the rear shock. Well, I like blew that off, but I hit so
you blew
hard.
them off?
Well, like off the shock, like there's the shock is this, and the ring is on the shock, so like almost like a gasket.
Yeah.
It was like off the shock. Like I hit so freaking hard because I just went up and then straight to flat. Like I probably looked like an absolute dummy. Like I was not going fast enough, which is very deceiving. So anyway, my hands hurt, my ankles hurt, like dude, my stomach hurt. I hit so hard. I landed so hard on the bike. Somehow I held on. Normally what happens when you land like that, like one hand blows off and your head will hit the stem, my helmet. I held on. Dude, I hit so hard. So I get off the bike, I take a picture, I send it to my buddy. He responds, ha 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 ha. He goes, yeah, dude, you need a lot of speed for that. I wouldn't even know it's just a single double black. Like, okay, cool.
Now you know for next time.
Yeah, no, I'm just gonna go. I'm just gonna rip into that. I'm just gonna go buzzing into that. I might even skip part of that.
But they close down. What do they get ready for? I'm assuming they get ready for ski season.
For the snow, yeah. So we got this upcoming weekend, and then maybe the next weekend to do that. So yeah, that's still on the bucket list. We're thinking about going. My girlfriend and I think about going up maybe a couple nights this weekend, and it's getting nice and crisp. That crispy mountain air.
I love the fall. Man.
It's so awesome. It's like 30 degrees now. It's so awesome. And there's this tiny little brewery. I think we talked about it last time. A tiny little brewery, like walking distance.
Hell yeah.
To the condo. So yeah, that was it. Any good movies? No, I feel like my hands still hurt from that landing shot. It's so hard.
That's brutal, man.
Luckily, there's nobody behind me because damn. And you can see like the tire marks, and I texted it to my buddy, and he starts laughing. He goes, yeah, dude,
my hobbies are, I don't do anything like that. I sit and watch other people do things like that. So I don't even bother with it anymore. No, not.
So anyway, worked on the app. We're dialing in the app after this, of course. Campaign pilots. NHL season starts here pretty soon. Stoked for that. Actually, you know what? My buddy's going to be in town. I think it's next week. This is so random. We played men's league together like 10 years ago. At the time, he was working I'm in Denver. He was working for a sports agent. And then he took a job with the Arizona Coyotes.
Mm-hmm.
And then he got promoted a couple times. He has a law degree, so he was like a junior agent. And then Utah was purchased, so they buzz over to Utah. He's now the assistant general manager of the Utah Hockey Club. It's just so random. It's like so weird to see him on TV. And I just picture him like just like bitching at a ref, men's league hockey on Thursday nights at like 10:30 over like a bad call. And now he's like the assistant GM of Utah. Like the hell? It's like so weird to see him on ESPN. So he's going to be in town next week. We're going to try and get together for preseason. Utah's in Colorado. So
cool.
Dude, I saw him on TV and I was like, what planet am I on right now?
His
name is David Ludwig. I was like, what planet am I on? Where am I watching Luddy on TV? Like,
gotta be surreal.
Dude, it's so weird. Anyway, all right, enough of our fascinating lives. Yeah, the interview is great. You'll learn a lot. And if you are a builder, founder, CEO, struggles with sleep, you'll definitely learn a lot. So
most of us do.
Yeah, it is with everybody. So we'll be back next week.
All right.
Peace.
Later.
All right, we're here with Colin Lawlor, CEO of Sleep.ai. And Colin, thank you for taking a few minutes.
Hey, thanks for having me. Great to meet you both.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm sure you're a busy guy. We were kind of talking off, from recording. You've been traveling. You said you're in Germany?
Yes, I was. Actually, last week I was in Germany at the Big Bang AI Festival. So, as you know, like AI is top of mind everywhere. And, 8,500 people showed up and it was a, tremendous event. But there we were holding a sleep masterclass. 4 billion people wake up tired every day. Right now, people are searching about sleep like crazy. In fact, it's the number one health search term. Yeah, there's two parts to that. Why is that? Well, the first one is people finally get the sleep is really important. So that's great progress. Because when I was a kid, sleep was for wimps, right? You were a hero if you worked through the night.
Right.
Right. Yeah. So this is great progress. People know it's important. But the other reason why they're searching around sleep at such volume is because they don't know what to do to solve it. And that's the key. How do we help 4 billion people to deal with the sleep challenges so that they can feel better, perform better, achieve more in their daily lives, but also reduce the risk of pretty much every major chronic disease as they age. So that's the kind of mission. And AI opens the possibilities of this space that were impossible not that long ago.
Gotcha. Okay. And just for context, Connor, like we said off recording, you're talking to two guys that have insomnia. So
yeah.
Okay. We certainly need to talk. Well, first thing, you're not alone, right? You know, as much as 20% of the adult population are suffering from insomnia.
Okay.
I think this also probably hits home for a lot of people listening too, because a lot of the people out there building apps are burning, candles at both ends of the stick. So I really do think this hits close to home for them as well.
Yeah, and I feel it because somebody once joked with me, which is the joke was, if you want to find a way to ruin your sleep, you should found a company, and particularly a sleep company, right? So I fully sympathize with it, and that takes a lot of work to do my best to keep my own sleep in shape. Travel, stress.
Yeah.
And as the founder of a company or a person that's building a product or an app, we're all motivated to change the world, but we're so committed and excited about that. We sometimes go too far in terms of the compromises we make, and ultimately that ends up being less productive. So I'm going to try and make an argument to everybody here that when it comes to their sleep, okay, I'm not going to say you have to have 8 hours every single night. The medical guidelines will tell you 7 to 9 hours for an adult. But look, guys, if you can get an extra few minutes of better quality sleep, every minute matters.
Yeah.
And I think let's start there. Let's add those minutes one at a time and help you, because it'll produce more productivity. It'll produce less damage. So absolutely, trying to get this into context is hard for us entrepreneurial people, but it's important.
So Colin, you raised $5.5 million. Congrats on that.
Thank you.
And you have the world's largest sleep data set, over 830 million.
Yeah, 841 million hours as of today, and ticking up obviously every day.
Okay. Before all that, though, we're going to start at the beginning. You worked at Guinness.
Dublin. Yeah. Listen, my first job out of college, actually, I graduated in marketing, so obviously nothing to do with tech, but this was in the dark ages, right? I was one of the first people at the Guinness Brewery in Dublin to actually have a PC. And I was working on a particularly important project around price optimization, right? And so forth. So my computer, the first or second computer in the brewery, ended up very quickly being not powerful enough, so I had to get an upgrade. So we're talking about back in the dark ages, in the sense that data and the ability to the computing power that we now have in our phones was just completely unimaginable. So I worked there in sales and marketing and operations, right in the center of a core strategic shift within the company. It was a really great company to learn. And I had tremendous mentors there. But, as I like to say, for me, it wasn't fulfilling enough. I think it's a great brand. It's a great business. It's globally spread around the world. It's one of very few Irish global brands that most people anywhere in the world would recognize. But I kind of have spent the last 25 years of my life actually trying to make people healthier. And I find that a lot more motivating. And I think that to me is the key. I think for each of us, we're looking for meaning as well as work. And when you connect those two things together, that just unleashes energy that you just can't find otherwise. So I learned a lot in Guinness, in the beer business. And for the last 25 years, I've been in technology for health and wellness. And I find that incredibly fulfilling.
So at what point did you know that you wanted to focus on sleep?
Right. Listen, that was serendipity, right? So in my early days, I spent some time in management consulting, and I had another great mentor. His name was Martin Chamberlain, and we would travel a lot together. And on the journey, he was just an amazing thinker. He would pose the following question, which we debated for many, many times. The question was, what can we do to drive more value from the 8 hours or the 1/3 of your life that you spend asleep. Now, he was thinking about it from the perspective of, well, could we get 2 more hours of work from people? So he was thinking about, well, this is a lot of time to spend passively asleep. But that question and that debate stuck in my head forever. And my own father became ill. He was given a terminal cancer diagnosis. And he believed, and I believed, that because of sleep, he actually survived that for 14 years. And in the middle of all of this, I was working in Dublin for another health and wellness company and traveling all around the world. And a small startup in Dublin, Ireland called Biancamed had a problem with their first business in Germany, in their first business partnership in Japan. And they were trying to figure out how to approach that. And I was one of the very few people in Dublin, who had a lot of experience in Japan. So jumped in, and immediately I was intrigued because these guys were measuring sleep, and I thought that was fascinating, but they were doing it without the need to wear anything. And so it was non-contact radio frequency sensing with a device that just sits beside your bed. And with that device, we can see our heart rate, we could see your respiratory pattern, we could see body movement, and we can learn a lot about your underlying health from that data. So that was 15, 16 years ago. I helped them out. We made great progress in Japan, and then we sold a company to ResMed in 2011. And ResMed, as many people may know, is the global leader in sleep medical devices, particularly for sleep apnea. And they're headquartered here in San Diego, and they said, well, we want you to move to San Diego. So I moved here with my wife and 2 daughters and puppy, and we did that in literally 11 years ago. And from there, we spun out SleepScore Labs after 2 to 3 years because it's very difficult inside a large organization that's focused particularly in the clinical side of sleep to do what we want to do. And what we're setting out to do is to collect data at really significant scale, understand for each person exactly how they're sleeping and what challenges they are facing, why they're facing those challenges, and what solutions will work for them. Because we really want to solve it, right? You can't manage any problem without the data, but the goal is to improve sleep. And that's been the mission ever since we founded initially SleepScore Labs 8 or so years ago. And then we bought a company called Sleep.AI 7 years ago. I like to tell people that because we're not Sleep.AI because Sleep.AI is on trend. We're Sleep.AI because we knew the future is in large scale understanding, leveraging data, and using that data to help people to sleep better.
Wow, that's awesome. Colin, another question for you. You even said it before. We were talking about, you said sleep is not for wimps. That's a lot different than the way other people think about it, especially hustle culture, entrepreneurs, people building AI apps and whatnot. Mm-hmm. Did you always think of it that way, or did your perspective kind of change on sleep and how important it was?
Oh, that's a great question, Connor. And I have to be honest with you. When I was having those journeys with Martin and we were discussing this topic, I was one of those heroes, right? So I was absolutely, in fact, I worked around the clock on several occasions. And I remember now, I'm ashamed to admit this, but I have to tell you it's part of the story. I remember now more than once driving home after work and being so sleepy that I almost killed myself.
Whoa.
And it would be bad for me to almost kill myself, but it would be even worse to kill somebody else, right? Yeah. So that happened. That's in my consciousness, and I feel ashamed, and I'm responsible for that. So yes, I thought about it the same way as everybody else thought about it at the time. But as we know, information is power, right? So if you're ignorant about the topic, what can you do? But if you're made aware of it, then that helps to change your mind if you're open to that, right? So when I joined Biancamed, I began to really dig into this and learn, and I could see how my own father was using sleep as part of his therapy. Now, we didn't know for sure at that time that was a driver, but I now know it is. And so I think what happened was I went through my own personal realization by looking at the facts and learning about the sleep and the data and the role it plays in everything to do with health. And I'll share some of that as our conversation goes on. So now I absolutely know that when like yesterday afternoon, because of jet lag, I was tired, like quite very tired. And I'm sure you all identify with this. When you're really, really, really tired and you're trying to do a task, the task takes not twice as long, it takes 3 times, 4 times as long, and you just don't do it as well, right? So, that's the cost of not having enough sleep. And if that cost, is immediately apparent today in the work you're doing, that's basically diminishing returns for you. You're not getting a return. Just give up, get to sleep, and then do it in half the time better. But what you don't know is, and this is the part about health, is if you keep doing that, if you keep staring at your computer and you're very sleepy because you're not getting enough sleep, and you think you're being the hero, which I thought myself, right? Yes, I'm the hero. I've got the staying power, the willpower that's all a bull, to be honest, because when you look at it, all that's happening is your productivity is going down, your creativity is substantially reduced, and that's today. But you keep doing that, you stock up a greater risk of every chronic disease. I'm going to give you one shocking statistic from a paper published in JAMA Neurology only a year to a year and a half ago. And what that showed was, for a person aged 60, every 1% reduction in deep sleep results in a 27% increase in dementia, right? Wow. So that's 1 minute, right? So every minute for a typical person aged 60 that they lose in deep sleep is a 27% increase in dementia. Wow. So the point is, if you don't give the time for your cells to do their work, they don't have enough time to do the work, and therefore the toxins build up in your brain. There's a greater beta amyloid build up. There are tau tangles building up. They're breaking the synapses. And you don't know this is happening while you're the hero, but don't take that chance, because when you're 60 and 70 and 80, you're going to have another cost. So today you have a cost: productivity, creativity, effectiveness, but you have another really important long-term one, because you're far greater risk of suffering from other chronic diseases.
Wow. Did you read Arianna Huffington's book?
Yes.
Sleep.
Yes.
Okay. So what did you, and for context, again, I have insomnia. In fact, last night I woke up at about 3:15 and went from my bed to my couch. So I think I'm training my brain to wake up, go to my couch. That's what my sleep therapist said.
Yeah.
I dozed off around 4:30 and I woke up at like 6. 6 is about normal for me. But she said, log down that data between, waking up, dozing off. And if you end up on the couch, again, you're training your brain to where you can only fall back asleep on the couch. So I was talking to my girlfriend and she said, hey, you should read Arianna Huffington's book. It's called Sleep Revolution.
Yep.
What are your thoughts on that book? And also, when did you read that? Was that when you were with?
Oh my God. I think I read that maybe 9 or 10 years ago, even before we founded the company.
Okay.
And, look, Arianna's done a tremendous service to society, because she was one of the first people to highlight the really critical importance of sleep, right?
Yeah.
And, she talked about how she was so tired that, she, her head fell on her desk and she did some damage. And then that was, to her, essentially the wake-up call. And that is very, very common. So she did a service to the society, because she said, listen, this is toxic. This is costing everybody. It's going to result in a much larger societal bill when it comes to how are we going to fund healthcare if we've got more and more people suffering from chronic diseases. And one of the simplest ways to manage this is to simply prioritize sleep. You actually need it. There is no way to do without it. A very, very small number of people have a particular gene, and we're talking about 1 in a million, that indicates that perhaps they can survive with less sleep. But for most of us, that's not the case. So Arianna, she actually essentially woke up everybody to sleep, if you'll forgive the pun, right? But then you have Matt Walker, Why We Sleep, and then you have, in the early days of Sleep Score, Dr. Oz, all contributing at the time to awareness about why sleep matters. And the great news is there's now an army of sleep experts and sleep interested individuals around the world, and we now know it's connected to chronic disease, because the researchers have been doing the work to look at the mechanisms by which sleep actually drives poor outcomes. You've got researchers looking at correlations like in relation to sleep at 60 and dementia, for example. And one thing that motivates me very significantly, do you mind if I just tell you one other story? Yeah, look, my mum passed away just over 2 years ago, and she was diagnosed very, very late stage cancer, which when I was there, I discovered, and then I got worried, and I did everything I could to get some urgent help. And very quickly, we discovered it had metastasized and it was in her brain. And, at that point, the treatment options available in Ireland were, chemotherapy and radiotherapy. So I was flying over and back as often as I could to be there for her. I wanted to be there for the first therapy session. So listen, I was there, jet lagged. I got up the next morning, got my mum ready. We went to the first hospital for chemotherapy. It was scheduled for 11 a.m. The second appointment was at a different hospital for radiotherapy. That was at 5 p.m. And sitting there, 11 a.m. came and went, and still no sign of the chemotherapy, right? 12, 1, 2, 3, 4 o'clock, she finally goes in. I am so stressed because I'm trying to hide my stress from my mother. And I'm really, really worried about, can I make it to the other side of the city in 15 minutes in rush hour, which I knew I couldn't, right? So I was so stressed, unbelievably stressed. And I realize now that I was stressed about the wrong thing. There was a paper published in the Lancet in the last year that shows that if you time therapy in line with your circadian rhythm, it can have a difference in terms of outcomes as much as 40%, right? Not 4%, not 2%, 40%. So I was worried about logistics. What I should have been worried about was the timing of my mum's therapy. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So the point I'm trying to make is, in all of this, is that the science, because of the data, and the data is capable of being collected and processed at scale today, which it could never have been before, is enabling us to truly understand what we probably all know deep down, because our mothers told us, if you're sick, sleep it off. If you've got a big dilemma that you're worried about at work, get some sleep, and you wake up tomorrow, you'll have a better insight around it. Sleep on it if you've got a problem. If you want to really learn, don't work through the night, but actually give your brain the time to consolidate everything that you've learned. All these things are truisms that we were taught when we were kids by our parents and grandparents, but now the science is showing they're true, right? So I say this kind of, very passionately, because this is why it's exciting. If you just think about this, if we could reduce the rate of dementia by helping more people to sleep better earlier, that would be huge. If we could increase the success rate of cancer therapy by optimizing the timing of that therapy for each person, that would be huge. If we can reduce accidents on the road, if we can increase productivity and creativity, this one thing that we all do every day, sleep, it drives all of those things. And so that's why, like I said, that's why it's so motivating to work in the space, because we can do that, and we don't have to force people to get a whole extra hour tonight. What we have to do is to help each person to get an extra minute, and then another minute, and then another minute. And over time, we help them to get the best sleep they can. And that will make a difference to their lives.
You know what? That's what my sleep coach, I think she called it, sleep coach, said, is like, let's not aim for an hour to start, go for a minute. And then go for it. And it's like, well, I want an hour. I want an extra hour of sleep. I'm too impatient. I get poopy pants when I go what I want. And then so we had like a whole log of a spreadsheet, and kind of like you said, you can't improve what you don't track. So to that end, so a lot of companies, and I've seen this, they have, of course, mattresses and rings and all that. Why did you take the approach of being the Intel inside? And also, can you tell us more about your app as well? So two sides to that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, first of all, we do have an app. It's called the Sleep Score app, and you can download and use it. But it's not our primary business. We built the app originally to enable us to collect data. And we needed to collect a lot of data in order to build the AI-powered models, which basically help us to decide what advice to give to any individual, and also to screen people for disorders and so forth. So we have our own app. It's still there. It's our test and learn environment, but it's not our primary business. Now, by the way, it's pretty cool. You should consider using it, because it's commandeering the speaker and the microphone on your smart device. And it's using them to generate sound waves. And we're using those sound waves to measure movement of the body. Basically, think about echolocation. If you think about a bat flying through a cave in the dark, can't see anything, but never hits the wall because it's sending out a sound wave and listening to the response time. It's quite incredible. So that's sonar technology. So we're using sonar technology. We're converting every smartphone into a sonar biomotion sensor that enables us to very, very accurately measure sleep at home. And we did that in order to collect data and in order to build our first models. So, today we've opened up because now we take data from every wearable. We have data from more than 600 different wearables. And we have, as I mentioned, 840 plus million hours of that data, which enables us to understand the relative strengths and weaknesses of each of the data sources. Because the reality is that most of the consumer-focused companies just don't have the budgets or the focus to truly build our algorithms to handle such wide diversities in people with real issues, people with no issue, people who are suffering from undiagnosed sleep disorders, to people who are healthy, old, young, genders, and so forth. So it costs a fortune to truly build those algorithms, because you have to do that in hospital sleep labs, because that is the gold standard. You did it, Connor.
I wanted to chime in here because I've actually, for sleep apnea, actually used the app to basically for them to monitor patterns of my sleep and see any disruptions or anything like that. So I just found it, quite interesting, and obviously went back and they found some issues with my sleep patterns and went through a whole program to enhance my sleep and make it better. But just you mentioning that kind of brought that up. So again,
I'm delighted. That's why we exist, right? I'm delighted. Because the reality is people don't know. Like, you're suffering in silence. It's usually, for many people, goes on for years, and it's really, really difficult to dig out of it. And there's no objective measure. So what we are doing basically is we use the app to collect a large amount of data, not just from our own technology, but from all the other technologies too. And that enabled us to build models, so we can harmonize and normalize the data no matter where it comes from. We also have built models that enable us to collect data passively, because you may have a wearable watch, you may have a wearable ring, you may have a device built into your bed. You have your own preference, your own brand. But a lot of people don't have that data every night, because they want to charge their device or they forget to wear it or whatever. So what we're doing is we're collecting other data from the phone with the person's permission, so that we can understand what's happening to the person's sleep cycle regardless. And when you put that data together, so it's really, you have to have large amounts of that data to understand what's happening with people's sleep. Now, what we're also doing, though, is we built advice engines. Now, this part's important. We use AI, we use machine learning, but we don't allow any LLM to make any key health decision, because we can't trust it, right? When we get into people's health, everything needs to be fully deterministic. In other words, if I advise you to do something, I have to know why. I have to have an audit trail for that. And there has to be science and evidence behind that, because if there isn't, then the chances are it's actually not possible to, number one, validate that it's really the right advice for you. And then number two, it's also not possible for us to have an audit and a quality check for that later. So for the use of AI in health, it's really important that there are guardrails which are built around, right? And so we have built our own advice engines, and then we have guardrails around those advice engines so that we can highly personalize advice for any given person. And at the end of all of that, we put the entire thing through what's called a randomized controlled trial, because at the end of the day, if you can't prove it and you can't publish it, then it's not good enough. And that's really, really important when we get into the health sphere, right? So for sure, there's a lot of people with a lot of comments and thoughts about sleep, and everybody sleeps. But the tools and the products and the services you use need to have evidence behind them, and that evidence should ideally be published, in our view. And so we absolutely set that standard by making sure it's published. So going back to the app encapsulates a lot of that, but it was the grounds that we used to build everything. And now we've turned that app, the technology, into a suite of APIs and an SDK that can be easily integrated into any other app. Now, I'll pause for a moment, because I think the other part of your question was, why did we become Sleep Inside Sleep.AI inside versus trying to do this directly. And if you want, I can just spend a minute on that. And really the way we think about this is, look, 4 billion people are tired, right? Every one of those people has a smartphone, or most of them have a smartphone. Some have wearables, but no one brand is available to everybody. So you think about it, basically what you have is a whole series of islands. You have an Apple Watch island, you have an Aura island, you have a Fitbit island, Xiaomi, Garmin, and many, 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 many others, right? And we're good with that. But the key for us is to be able to use the data to help any person sleep better. If you choose to use a wearable, or if you choose to use a particular device in your bed, we're good with that. The data is helpful to us, but what you need is help to improve. So it's about being able to use the data no matter where it comes from. So it may come from the phone by itself, or it may come from a wearable, or it may come from our sonar technology inside the phone. But the strategy is to be able to use the data no matter where it comes from, so that we can help the person to sleep better. And our decision was, we had a choice. We can be the best marketers in the world, and we can reach 3, 4, 5 million people with a tremendous sleep app. And then we would reach diminishing returns. That's not what we want. We want to help more than a billion people to sleep better. And the best way to do that is to partner with the brands and apps that those people are already using. Because that way we can essentially focus on what we're the best at, which is using the data, driving the science, and improving the sleep, rather than being the best at and putting all of our effort and money into only marketing. We decided to be the best in the world at the sleep and the data and the AI around that.
And that leads into a question I have too, Colin. It's all about the data, right? Because that's what drives this all forward. I'm assuming 830 million hours of sleep data, massive amounts. Like, how do you build that data set? It's obviously a competitive advantage, I'd assume. What goes into all of that? How do you build it? What are you pulling from? What does that give you in terms of a competitive edge?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And it's a combination of the data about how people sleep, right? And so how we pull that data is we put an SDK into our partners' apps. And with their consumer consent, we pull all available data from whichever wearable they use. And if they don't use a wearable, we pull other data from the phone. And then we run that through our AI models so that we can essentially understand how they're actually sleeping and what we believe the underlying cause to be. And in addition to that, if there's no data coming from a wearable, we're then predicting what we think is happening because we have built those predictive models from limited data, right? The point being, we can provide insights about sleep for every single person that has a smartphone, whether or not they have ever tracked. And usually we can do that from the very first 2 minutes. So when a person signs up to an app that includes our SDK or API, we usually have between 500 and 800 nights of sleep history. And history tells us a lot too, right? Because most of us, if we struggle with sleep challenges, I'll tell you about my one in a moment, it's different to insomnia, it's restless leg syndrome. But most of us that suffer from sleep issues, it usually is progressive. It starts and it gets worse over time, right? And so understanding how we sleep over time is really, really important to be able to help you. And also recognizing that, solving your sleep issue today is great, but you're going to sleep for the rest of your life and you will have challenges again in the future. So sleep is longitudinal. It's not about today, it's about forever. And so being able to access the data, regardless of whether or not you actively track every night of your life or some nights of your life or no nights of your life, that's the key. Right. So the data is the key, but it's not just the data about your sleep. That's really, really important, really, really important. But it's the data about the contributors to your sleep problems. So environmental data, stress data, exercise data, alcohol consumption, caffeine consumption, all of those factors, the mattress you sleep on, the bedroom environment, all of those factors influence your sleep. And so understanding those is important too. So we've made it our business to collect all of that data, right? And then we've also made it our business to deliver to people the advice, but we don't just, because we're collecting the data every day, we can not only deliver the advice, but we can measure whether the advice is having any effect or not. And that's the key, because we want to close the loop across everything. And so, at the heart of it is absolutely the data. So as I've mentioned, we started with our proprietary technology. Then we opened up to all the wearables, and then we expanded to other data from the phones so that we have a picture about a person's sleep regardless. And then we started to expand partnerships by putting our SDK and APIs into our partners' apps, and that expands the reach, and that all helps us to grow the data. And with the data, we're building new models all the time. That's what we're doing.
That's great. That's awesome. And just, me being a marketing forward person first, I'm sure I'd love to get hands on data like that, right? And consolidate it based on things with partnerships and leverage it for certain things, because I'm sure there's subsets of data where there's users who all fit a certain mold based on patterns or disruptions in sleep that all fit something. And you can work with partners to leverage that for sleeping patterns or environmental things in their sleep, correct?
Yeah, Connor, it's funny because that's where we actually got the first traction, right? Commercial traction.
Yeah.
So we got a first commercial traction because we had a consumer app. And as of now, 96,000 people have volunteered to participate in our consumer sleep panel. And that means that those people are open to running research programs.
Yep.
And so we are routinely running studies on products, on services, on concepts, and we have 96,000 people participating, and with their consent, we understand how they're sleeping so we can target specific sleep problems quickly and easily, and then measure the effect of various interventions. And that's a business for us, our R&D services business, which we can, the product name is Sleep Score Labs. We continue to do that. So we've now completed more than 250 separate studies, right? And then what does that mean? It means we've measured a person's sleep with a particular issue, and then we've tested a specific intervention. Everything, mattresses, pillows, air purification systems, blue light filtering systems, scents, fragrances, CBD, melatonin, and we're growing and growing and growing that. And that helps our partners to build better products that actually works, that they can make claims about. It also helps us to learn about what works for whom, which in turn helps us to make our recommendations better. And that's it's a really important part of what we do, because we not only measure sleep, we not only provide the coaching, but we also understand what interventions work for whom. And all of that together is the key, because that's how you actually improve sleep, right? And our focus is on sleep improvement. So yeah, the whole thing is in the data. Now, something that's important is we don't sell personal data to anybody for any reason. Never done. It's part of our policy, because people's sleep data is theirs, and they provide us the consent to use it to help them personally, and that's our one part of what we do, and also to anonymize it so that we can use it for the purposes of advancing the research and the knowledge and the science around sleep. So that's important. But at its heart, it's all about the data. And you're right about the competitive moat. There are platforms with far larger amounts of data, but it's only from their own users.
Right.
Or larger amounts of data, but it's only about some aspect of sleep, not the complete story. Or doesn't have all of the environmental and behavioral factors. And for the most part, most of the companies also don't have the evidence-based kind of coaching and screening platforms that we've now developed. But it's all about growing the data, using it to build more models, using those models to help more people. And we want to be the best in the world at that.
Love it.
Gotcha. Can you talk more about the technical integration with your partners and the APIs?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, it's actually, we've now made it so simple. So you can, if you've got a health and wellness app, just to back up a little bit, let's take a use case. Let's think about mental health as a great example. Meditation is another great tool. So we know for sure that basically reducing the parasympathetic nervous system response, the stress response before sleep, absolutely helps improve sleep, right? So you've got lots and lots and lots of different approaches to helping people to reduce their experience of stress. And one of the primary use cases is before going to sleep. But the problem with all of that is you don't know whether it's working or not. Because with your sleep, as you know, when you've got to write down what happened to your sleep, it's highly subjective and highly inaccurate. And it's difficult to remember. And as a result, the data is not so good. So what we do is you can integrate, if you're in mental health as an example, you could integrate our SDK typically in less than a day. We've designed it to be really, really easy to integrate. And then that has a connection to our APIs. And we pull with your, obviously, you have to make sure that you've got the appropriate consents from your user, but we pull that passive data, wearable data, and any other data that's available immediately through. And that gives us a picture of how you sleep. Now, on your back end, with that mental health application, we can then essentially correlate 500 nights, 800 nights of sleep history with the use of your meditation app. And the question that everybody wants to know is, does your meditation app actually contribute to better sleep or not? For Colin or for Connor or for Charlie? And the answer to that is in the data, right? And so the use case starts with, for that mental health app, well, can I show Charlie that his use of the meditation app correlates with better sleep? And this is how much better sleep he gets, because that's what you really want to know. So it enables our partners to close the loop, firstly, because if you are managing stress properly, it will contribute to better sleep. If you are exercising properly, it will contribute to better sleep. If you are managing your diet properly, it will contribute to better sleep. If you buy the right mattress, if your temperature in the bedroom, it will contribute to better sleep. But you don't have the data, you don't know whether it's working or not. So the key starts there. So we call that the Data and Insights API. We make it really, really easy for our partners to see those insights, which they can then share back with their customers, which in turn, if we've all tried lots of these different things, and we think some work, we're not sure, we keep trying them. But ultimately, the question is, do they actually work for me? And that's what we help to establish, right? But we then go from there because, for the meditation company or the chronic disease company or the female health company, it's very difficult for them to build a sleep improvement program. It's going to cost a fortune, take years, require a lot of evidence. Mm-hmm. That's available in the coaching APIs. And so you just simply connect that up, and then essentially we deliver back through those APIs the content that you need to guide the person to better sleep. And then finally, we also have pathways to screen people for other risks, such as sleep disorders, and connect them to the solutions for those risks. And we're building up more and more of those things. So our goal is to connect the dots, right? And make it so easy for developers to incorporate the APIs in their apps. And we know that no matter what you are doing with health and wellness, think about it like you are absolutely going to get better results, for example, in weight loss, if your customer base deals with sleep. Because if you don't have enough sleep, the hormones that regulate your appetite are not available to you. It's not willpower, guys. It's actually sleep deficiency in a lot of cases, right? Mm. So from weight loss to fitness to diet to chronic disease management, in all of those spaces, sleep is a hidden driver. And what we're doing is we're making the data and the insights available to our partners through the SDKs and APIs.
That is so awesome. The fact that there's insights. The test that I did, I'm in Denver. And went to a reputable clinic. They gave me the test where there's like a sticky node and like you put it here, and then you have like a clamp that goes over your finger.
Yes.
And then it, routes to the phone, and then the phone goes to the platform. Yep. And all it told me is, you slept like 4.5 hours. And then they're like, all right, beat it. They didn't tell me. I was like, okay, I knew that. Like I could have told you that. I just took time out of my day, and I had to figure out how to use the freaking thing. Like it was a pain in the rear end too, and it was just like it was almost just like a whole waste of time. Like I could have told them exactly what the data.
Well, I'll say one thing for the clinician: it helped them to rule out apnea to begin with, right? And that's a really, really useful test for screening for apnea, right? Because with apnea, what happens is, and maybe Connor might know, but you're choking basically. Your airway is blocked. And that causes two problems. It basically restricts oxygen flowing around your body, and that's not good. Every organ in your body needs oxygen, right? So it basically restricts oxygen. But the second thing is there's a bodily response. If you get choked, the first thing the body is going to do is to wake you up. And if you keep waking up every couple of minutes, you don't get into deep sleep, right? And that's what happens with apnea. So the good news is that test ruled out apnea. But you are absolutely right. It sounds like it's more like insomnia that you're challenged with. And if that's the case, yes, an apnea test is not going to help with that. what we got to do is we've now got to get you some help in terms of chronic insomnia. Now, in our own application, we have built in the advice, because you're absolutely right. People want to know, what should I do? And if it is chronic insomnia, Charlie, you do still need to see a doctor, but let's talk about that offline. We'll connect you to a great doctor in that space. But a lot of people don't have actual chronic insomnia. Sometimes they have what we call subclinical threshold sleep issues. So insomnia symptoms, but not necessarily yet at a chronic condition. So basically, to help with that, there's a series of things that the platform does. It uses the principles of CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, but it does those in a way that you can follow and add those minutes one at a time. So yeah, but you could also have restless leg syndrome, which I have, right? And that didn't bother me when I was younger. It bothered my wife, because I would kick and it would, wake her up. And eventually it became a problem, because as we age, we're often more susceptible to arousal. We'll wake up more easily. And so that was waking me up a lot. And I was really struggling to solve it. So I did a personal experiment. It took me 2 to 3 years to do that experiment. And I've narrowed down a set of solutions, and they've made a massive difference to me. And I think that that's the goal, right? Because the thing about sleep is there's no one size fits all, right? I have to stop drinking coffee and anything that's caffeinated at midday. Midday is my cutoff. If I have a cup of coffee, and I did it last week in a moment of weakness in Berlin with jet lag, I had a cup of coffee at 1:30 and I had a lousy sleep, guys. And I know that that's going to happen. It's just I was weak at the time, and and it happened. But I've got a good friend who's a world sleep expert, and he's very able to drink a double espresso after dinner at 10 p.m. and it has no effect on him.
Good for him.
Because we're all different, right? So that the advice and the solutions have to be highly personalized. And that's the issue that makes it even more complex, because we don't subscribe to the idea that thou shalt never drink coffee. Coffee has other health benefits, actually. So why would you do that? But we also don't subscribe to the idea that we tell the whole world, thou shalt not have a smartphone after 8 p.m., because that's just not going to work, guys.
Yeah.
So instead, what we got to do is we have to have practical interventions that people can actually implement in their daily lives. And that's how we change it and deliver better results.
Gotcha. Well, Colin, thank you for the time. Appreciate it. As we wrap up here, where can people find your solutions?
Just go to Sleep.ai, www.sleep.ai, and it's all there. On the personal side, we have solutions for consumers. So there's our apps. By the way, I should mention we have one app in Germany using our own APIs, which is now fully reimbursed. It's called Dein Schlaf by Sleep Score. What does that mean? It means every citizen of Germany is entitled to use it, and their health insurer must pay for it by law.
Wow.
Got it. Okay.
Because it's evidence-based, right? So we have consumer solutions like that. And then the business solutions, the APIs and the R&D services, they're also on Sleep.ai, along with all of our science and work that we've been publishing.
I saw some resources on there. Yeah, awesome. Great, cool. Colin, thank you for taking some time. I appreciate it. Cheers.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Get some sleep.